How do scientists discover information about the Earth's past? Scientists discover information about the Earth's history by first studying rocks and then dating them. One way of dating rocks is by placing rocks in their proper sequence of formation, called relative dating. This does not give us an exact date, only a reference point of when certain materials, such as sediments, lava flows, and beds of ash, were deposited on the Earth's surface, first, second, third, and so on. For example, here at the Grand Canyon, the oldest rocks are usually found at the bottom of the canyon, and the most recently formed layers of rock toward the top of the canyon. Another form of dating is radiometric dating, a complex procedure that measures the radioactive decay of certain minerals, allowing geologists to accurately determine the age of many rocks. Fossils also provide a tool for dating rocks. Scientists follow the principle that fossil organisms are found on the Earth in a definite and predictable order. Fossil records also reveal the types of life forms that existed in the past and how life has changed and adapted to the conditions on the Earth over millions of years. Throughout the Earth's history, there have been occurrences of numerous life forms in existence, which over time became extinct. The fossilized forms of life that could only exist during a specific geological time period are often used to determine the age of rocks. Not only do fossils determine the age of rocks, but also indicate the type of climate and environment of the region where the once living organism had lived. With each fossil and rock, scientists work together to reveal a glimpse of the Earth's dynamic history using the geologic timescale. What is the geologic timescale? The geologic timescale is a timeline dividing the Earth's history into units representing millions of years. Each unit is divided according to significant events. Eons represent the greatest expanse of time and are divided into subunits called eras. What is the Precambrian? The Precambrian makes up roughly 7/8 of the Earth's history and begins with the formation of the Earth. The time period begins around 4,600 million years ago and ends approximately 544 million years ago. 4,600 million years ago, the Earth was a cloud of mixed gases and dust. Slowly, the force of gravity attracted this cosmic material and condensed it into a huge sphere of molten matter. Eventually, the heavier materials, such as iron and nickel, sank to the interior, and the lighter minerals floated to the top. Sometime during the first 800 million years or more, the Earth's surface cooled, forming an outer layer composed of dense rock. Between the metallic core and the thin rocky outer layer lay molten moving rock. This churning mass of liquid rock often forced its way through the outer layer of cooled rock, emitting explosive violent eruptions of fiery lava and of large quantities of gaseous material. The force of gravity enabled the planet to retain an atmosphere of methane, ammonia, and other gases which would be toxic to most life on our planet today. The first rocks created during the Precambrian time were igneous extrusive rocks, formed and shaped by lava from the Earth's mantle that cooled to a solid mass on the Earth's surface. The tectonic plates of the lithosphere formed and moved. Large landmasses appeared. Weathering and erosion along with plate tectonics destroyed most of the solid rock that was older than 3,800 million years. What is left of the Precambrian mountains is landforms worn down to a point nearly level with the surrounding terrain. The oldest fossils are dated around 3,800 million years ago and consist of bacteria microfossils. All life during the more than 1 billion years of the early Precambrian was bacterial. Here in the Napa Range of California are many fossils of stromatolites, photosynthetic bacteria, which when living were abundant until the end of the Precambrian. They are not common today. Near the end of the Precambrian, there is evidence that there was an increase in oxygen. the byproduct of photosynthesis, which came from the stromatolites and other similar bacteria. This significant increase of oxygen in the atmosphere killed off many of the other bacterial groups, and at the same time made it possible for the later explosion of the numerous species of algae, animals, fungi, and protists who adapted well to this oxygen-rich environment. 544 million years ago, a large glaciation event occurred. This event was of such severity that almost all microorganisms were completely wiped out. Thus ends the Precambrian and begins the Phanerozoic Eon. What is the Phanerozoic Eon? The approximate last eighth of the geological timeline is represented as the Phanerozoic Eon. Sediments and rocks from approximately 544 million years ago to the present contain an abundance of animal and plant fossils. Phanerozoic Eon is divided into three eras: the Paleozoic Era, the Mesozoic Era, and the Cenozoic Era. What is the Paleozoic Era? The Paleozoic Era took up over half of the Phanerozoic Eon from approximately 544 million years ago to approximately 245 million years ago. The Europeans' Paleozoic Era is divided into 6 periods: Cambrian, Ordovician, Silurian, Devonian, Carboniferous, and Permian. In the United States, the Carboniferous Period is subdivided into 2 distinct time periods: Mississippian and Pennsylvanian. What happened during the Cambrian Period? The Cambrian Period begins approximately 544 million years ago and ends at approximately 505 million years ago. During the Cambrian Period, oceans and shallow seas covered most of the Earth. There were 6 major continental landmasses, and they were concentrated in the southern hemisphere. The climate was mild and probably warmer than today. With the world covered primarily by shallow water, marine invertebrates such as trilobites were well adapted for the shallow waters and flourished. There were numerous very clear fossil remains of this unique marine life due to their developed hard shells or ectoskeletons. These dominant trilobites were relatives to modern crabs and scavenged the ocean bottoms. What happened during the Ordovician Period? The Ordovician Period began approximately 505 million years ago and ended 440 million years ago. During the Ordovician Period, most of the world's land was collected together into the supercontinent Gondwana. There was much volcanic activity. At this time, uplifts took place in most of the areas that had been under shallow seas. A major glaciation period took place during the late Ordovician Period over the continent Gondwana. While there were erratic climatic changes, there also appeared to be a lack of oxygen in the water and a less appearance of tropical areas. Fossils of blastoids, corals, snails, and clams appeared for the first time in the geologic timescale, indicating some environments were tropical. Remains of early land animals and spores of early land plants have been found in the sediments from the Ordovician Period. Around 440 million years ago, due to the glaciation of the landmass Gondwana and the colder climates, more than 100 families of marine invertebrates did not adapt, therefore perished and became extinct. What happened during the Silurian Period? The Silurian Period began approximately 440 million years ago and ended approximately 410 million years ago. There was melting of large glacial formations and the rise in sea levels. Continents were distributed very differently. Major mountain building events occurred in eastern North America and in northwestern Europe, resulting in the formation of mountain chains. The climate became more stabilized during the Silurian Period. At this time, tropical seas and the coral reefs made their first appearance. There were many changes in the populations of fish, such as the wide rapid spread of jawless fish. What happened during the Devonian period? The Devonian period started 410 million years ago and ended around 360 million years ago. There were three major continental landmasses. Located near the equator, North America and Europe collided, resulting in the raising of the Appalachian Mountains of eastern North America. Much volcanic activity and earthquake events developed during this time. Very much like the present, rains fell and rivers carried sediments to the seas. Near the end of the Devonian, there is evidence of glaciation again taking place. Included with the fossils of the first land vertebrates were the amphibians, the first wingless insects, the first trees and forests appeared during the Devonian period. Many new kinds of fish appeared in the fossil records. Brachiopods flourished along with corals and ammonites, until it is believed that they and other marine life were severely impacted due to the oncoming episode of global cooling. What happened during the Carboniferous Period? The Carboniferous Period began approximately 360 million years ago and ended approximately 286 million years ago. Shallow, warm marine waters often flooded throughout the continents, regressed, and later reflooded the land. Continental movement drew the plates closer together. Along with the extensive uplifting of the land came erosion and the formation of lowlands and deltas. Tropical swamp forests and terrestrial habitats became more common and widespread. Plant fossils indicated there were few seasonal changes and that the climate was more tropical and humid than today. Large ice sheets developed over the South Pole. During this period, there was an increase in land habitat. The lizard-like fossil amniot and its eggs appeared. The ability to lay eggs allowed the ancestors of birds and other reptiles to reproduce on land. At this time, the first snails appeared along with dragonflies, scorpions, and spiders. Extensive swamp forests died and fell. Interestingly, these forests did not decay, but were covered by seas which over millions of years later transformed into coal. What happened during the Permian Period? The Permian Period began approximately 286 million years ago and ended approximately 245 million years ago and was the last period of the Paleozoic Era. The motion of the Earth's crustal plates arranged the continents into one large supercontinent known as Pangaea. Intense mountain building took place. The interior regions of Pangaea became dry, forming miles of sand dunes. Large volcanic eruptions occurred within the land area of Siberia. At the start of the Permian period, there were lowland swamps and fern jungles, but later these areas decreased significantly. As glaciers receded, the climate became arid. Great seasonal changes and extreme temperatures persisted throughout the wide expansive lands of the supercontinent. Some portions of the land received rainfall throughout the year, allowing for near-tropical climates on the moist east coast of Pangaea. It is strongly believed that during the Permian period, the largest mass extinction recorded in the history of life on Earth took place. Over 90% of the marine species became extinct at the end of this period. Nevertheless, amphibians adapted well to the land and their populations increased. Populations of primitive reptiles, including terrestrial mammal-like reptiles, increased. Modern cone-bearing trees and other seed-bearing plants first appeared on the Permian landscape. Overall, life on Earth would never again be the same. What is the Mesozoic Era? The Mesozoic Era begins approximately 245 million years ago and ended approximately 65 million years ago. The Mesozoic is divided into three periods: the Triassic, the Jurassic, and the Cretaceous. What happened during the Triassic Period? The Triassic Period started approximately 245 million years ago and ended approximately 208 million years ago, as it begins the Mesozoic Era. By the mid-Triassic, Pangaea began to fracture, forming mountains on the west coast of North America that extended from Alaska to Chile. Continents were of much higher elevation than sea level, and there were no shallow seas. Volcanoes spewed out great lava flows. The climate was influenced largely by tectonic events. Most of the Earth experienced arid and dry climate conditions. New animal life forms, such as the first dinosaurs, began to appear. The bipedal stance of the Coelophysis, pictured here, was characteristic of the early dinosaurs. From these early bipedal dinosaurs emerged the hundreds of different species of dinosaurs that are known today. The first crocodiles, turtles, and small primitive mammals also appeared. True cone-bearing trees, conifers, made their appearance. The cycads, with their crowns of palm-like leaves, multiplied and became an important component of Triassic vegetation. What happened during the Jurassic Period? The Jurassic Period started approximately 208 million years ago and ended approximately 146 million years ago. Pangaea began to rotate and break apart. The Central Atlantic and Gulf of Mexico water basins formed from the separating plates. The process of mountain building uplifted the Nevadan range on the North American continent. The climate was dry and warm, perfect for the animals of the Jurassic Period. Extensive Jurassic fossil deposits depict this period as having abundant life forms. The great plant-eating herbivores roamed the earth and fed on the lush growth of ferns and palm-like cycads. Smaller but vicious carnivores, the flesh-eaters, stalked the great herbivores. The largest and most common of the dinosaurs that ate meat was the 3-ton Allosaurus. Pterosaurs, identified as flying reptiles, were the first vertebrates to adapt to a life of active flight. Pterosaurs had no teeth, yet were carnivores. Even though the Archaeopteryx had teeth, a skull, and laid eggs like a reptile, its feathers, wings, and other structures have many scientists today identifying it as a bird. During this time period, the oceans were full of fish, squid, and coiled ammonites. Presently, many questions about dinosaurs still remain unanswered. Questions like, were dinosaurs warm-blooded or cold-blooded? Which dinosaurs wore feathers? Paleontologists, scientists who study fossils and the history of life on Earth, must continue to debate, investigate, and make new discoveries until these questions and many others are answered. What happened during the Cretaceous Period? The Cretaceous Period started approximately 146 million years ago and ended approximately 65 million years ago, and ends the Mesozoic Era. As Pangaea split into several smaller continents, coastlines developed, increasing available nearshore habitat. Mountain building dominated several regions of the world. During the Cretaceous Period, the Rocky Mountains were pushed up and the Alpine Himalayan mountains were formed. The Atlantic lengthened and widened at the same time as the Indian water basin was formed. Seasons became more pronounced and the global climate became cooler. The first ceratopsian or horned dinosaur fossils appeared during this time period. The most common of the Cretaceous dinosaurs were the herbivores commonly known as hadrosaurs or duckbills. The Tyrannosaurus rex, a very large theropod or meat-eating dinosaur, had a huge head with sharp teeth and well-developed jaw muscles that were capable of eating up to 500 pounds or 230 kilograms of meat and bones in one bite. The first flowering plants were truly primitive and belonged to archaic groups. Insects adapted and diversified. Forests changed and began to look similar to forests of today. Ferns dominated dry lands. Conifers dominated swamp lands. Quetzalcoatlus was the largest flying creature ever found, with a wingspan up to 13 meters or 42 feet. Not only was this flying reptile the largest pterosaur, it was the last of its kind. 65 million years ago, an asteroid hit the Earth in the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. The evidence is marked by high concentrations of iridium, an element found only in the Earth's mantle and in extraterrestrial meteors and comets. A layer of iridium has been found in both marine and terrestrial sediments at numerous boundary sites around the world. Scientists estimated that 60% of all species disappeared at this time. Surviving the influences of this impact were most of the ancestors of present-day animals such as mammals, birds, turtles, lizards, snakes, and amphibians. What is the Cenozoic Era? The Cenozoic Era begins approximately 65 million years ago and continues to the present. The era is divided into two main subdivisions, the Tertiary and Quaternary. The plates continued to adjust. The Atlantic Basin opened further and the continents moved into the areas where we find them today. The Rocky and Appalachian Mountains grew and continued to wear down. The Alps and Pyrenees mountain ranges formed. Volcanism produced massive lava flows forming the Columbian Plateau, and their volcanic peaks contributed to the Cascade Mountain Range. The Colorado Plateau was raised several times. The last uplift period allowed the mighty Colorado to carve out the spectacular Grand Canyon. At the start of the Cenozoic, the climate was warm and humid, but by mid-era the temperatures became cool. Ice sheets eventually formed in northern Europe, Siberia, Greenland, and Antarctica. At one time, 1/4 of all the land was covered by ice. Around 11,000 years ago, the Ice Age slowly ended and temperatures became warmer. Seasons became more pronounced. Insects were completely unaffected by the events that occurred at the end of the Cretaceous period and continued to adapt, diversify, and become widespread during the Cenozoic era. Mammals also survived the Cretaceous extinction and appeared throughout the Cenozoic era. The grasslands nourished the ancestors of present-day grazing land mammals. Other mammals, such as the mastodons and woolly mammoths, grew to enormous size and increased in population, then completely died off during the last ice age. The great herds of horses, camels, and bison, which lived in North America, became extinct around 12,000 years ago. Today, the well-adapted growing number of humans, whose fossil records only go back about 40,000 years ago, are now contributing to the extinction of many species. It is speculated that for the destruction of every 200 square kilometers or 120 square miles of rainforest and 100,000 square kilometers or 62,000 square miles of rangeland, there is a resultant loss of hundreds, possibly thousands of species of plants and animals. Humans are very much dependent on Earth's living organisms for their food, clothing, and medicines. Will deforestation, agricultural practices, mining, pollution, and overhunting threaten not only the world's living organisms, but possibly the human population as well? Only time will tell. Number 1. The geological history of the Earth only describes what kinds of rocks existed a long time ago. Number 2. The continental landmasses of the Earth have remained in the same location throughout all of Earth's history. Number 3. The geological timescale is a timeline dividing the Earth's history into units representing millions of years. Number 4. Over time, scientists have observed that life is adapted to varying conditions on the Earth. Number 5. The force of gravity enables the planet to retain an atmosphere. Answer the following. Number 6. What information can fossils reveal about the Earth's past? Number 7. Which unit of time is best represented by rocks containing abundant fossil evidence, the Precambrian or the Phanerozoic? Number 8. What happens to the sea levels when large glacial formations melt? Number 9. What were the first rocks and the first life forms on the Earth? Number 10. Name an environmental condition during the Earth's history that may have been the cause for a mass extinction of life forms.